Let's just do common sense anyway.
Let's do common sense. That's what I've got here. So, as we said, Viagra Boys is a podcast favourite. We previously reviewed their deluxe edition of Streetworms, which was released last year. Their EP, Common Sense, it was released on the 6th of March 2020. It consists of 4 songs and is approximately 14 minutes and 23 seconds long. I think I said to you before that I initially kind of felt as if the EP Common Sense had been made with common sense sensibilities, but as you quite rightly pointed out, the first line of the first track at the same name is, why can't you have a little common sense? Why does the chicken water float up to your head? So that kind of trademark, wacky, zany lyrics are still there. And I suppose the first track's all right. It does, musically, it does kind of feel more somber than their kind of previous numbers if you compare it to like a kind of Frog Strap, Jungle Man, Shrimp Shack. However, I've kind of said that you can still hear that kind of saxophone kind of somewhere in the background, as if it's almost like a caged beast kind of dying to be unleashed. And it gets full rain and goes kind of full throttle in the kind of second song, Lick the Bag, which musically, I suppose, is more like, the songs that I've kind of just mentioned there. And I would say Lick the Bag is definitely the highlight of the EP, in my opinion. I don't know if you're the same opinion or not.
I think when we talked about this before, my initial impression of this EP was that it was almost like leftover tracks from the Streetworm sessions.
We reviewed the deluxe version, which had a number of extra tracks, and they were probably the leftovers from the original album, maybe. Left off because the band didn't think they quite fit with the rest of the record. And the impression I got on first listen was that maybe these songs were too, but actually the more that I've listened to them, I feel a little bit bad about saying that, because I actually think these tracks are really good and they're not just leftover demos, that weren't seen to be good enough or whatever. But I take your point about Common Sense in that it's definitely more restrained and sounds like the band are perhaps turned over a new leaf or something in this opening track, like, we're going to play it cool now, but like you said, the lyrics are still ridiculous. The more I listen to Common Sense, the more I like it, because it's a slow build and it just builds and builds and builds before finally bursting into Lick the Bag. And I think that's a really awesome way for this EP to open up. Throughout Common Sense, like you say, it's got that saxophone that's just begging to be unleashed, and then, when Lick the Bag bursts into life, all hell breaks loose in the more traditional Viagra Boys style, or the likes of Shrimp Shack or Special Helmet. So Lick the Bag is just such a cool song. It's so cool. And I think it's just about doing coke and getting one last hit by licking the dregs from your baggie of drugs. You say that's a highlight for you. I would say the last track, Blue, is a highlight for me.
Okay. And I think it's just because it's a bit different.
And there were slower paced songs on Streetworms, right enough, which I quite enjoyed, but it's just, there's something about it, and I think it's because it sounds like the singer is kind of channeling Tom Waits. There's a sort of sombre, creaking style to the vocals, and it's a sort of confessional about not being the man that he appears to be, and just being this arsehole that does everybody wrong kind of thing. And I think it's great. It's not perhaps the sort of song you think of when you think of Viagra Boys, but I think it's a really cool track and a really great end to the EP.
Yeah, I'll give you that, man.
After the slow-paced opening of Common Sense, you end with a slow-paced closer of Blue, separated by the banger that is Lick the Bag, and then there's also Sentinel Island.
Where he's talking about even more drugs, heroin and fentanyl, both opiate-based analgesics of a sort. I've kind of described it as kind of smooth, laid-back, almost lounge music, or muzak. But yeah, I mean, I did enjoy it. You know what I mean? Yeah, I suppose, with the exception of Lick the Bag, I suppose it is more of a kind of, it shows another side of the band, doesn't it? The EP.
Yeah. I mean,
Sentinel Island reminded me a little bit of the song Just Like You from Streetworms, which is a much more restrained affair. And it's a pretty decent track. There was something about the name of it that intrigued me, so I looked Sentinel Island up, and it's part of the Andaman Islands in the Bay of Bengal, which is between the coasts of India and Thailand and Malaysia. So basically, the indigenous population don't take too kindly to outsiders and tend to violently reject visitors. So the lyrics kind of attest to that. I'm floating down the river in my rubber canoe, and I brought you chicken dinners blessed by Jesus and his crew. I came here to show you my computer and my shoes, but you shot me with an arrow. That wasn't really cool. I just I just think the idea of a Westerner going onto a remote island, showing off their fancy gear, expecting to wow the locals, but instead getting violently attacked is hilarious, and that made the song a little bit more interesting for me. But regardless, it's still pretty good. It's a decent track.
Cool. What rating did you give it?
I think probably an 8 because it's definitely a good EP. I think when I first heard it, I might have given it a 7, but I think the more I've listened to it, the more I've gained more of an appreciation for the opening tracks, certainly. Lick the Bag's just a banger, Blue is mesmerising, and I think Sentinel Island. It's the weakest track and my least favourite, but it's still decent, so it's a pretty fun, short-lived follow-up to Streetworms.
Yeah, and very possibly part of a kind of new album, a kind of full-length album.
Possibly.
Fingers crossed. I gave it a 7 out of 10. So
yeah. I think that's probably fair.
Did you see any of the lead up to the release of the EP?
I watched that video that you tagged me on Facebook, but that was it. That's all I saw. Was there more?
No,
there were just kind of weird teasers, and it all sort of revolves around this fake corporation, Shrimp Tech Industries. It was just kind of nonsense videos, and there was a boardroom meeting where the band are sort of announcing their plans for the EP, and everyone's just sitting around eating spaghetti. It's just an odd thing that's worth mentioning. I like the sense of humour this band's got.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's evidenced in the video for Sports, which I think is just fantastic.
Yeah.
He's just, there's two people playing tennis and he's just kind of stalking about, top off, wearing shades, and I think like Adidas tracky bottoms or something like that. And just singing Sports, which is a great song.
Yeah, it's like a junkie who's accidentally stumbled in a community centre or something.
Aye, pretty much. A man having a mental breakdown. But yeah, obviously you were meant to be seeing them pretty soon.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be playing Summer Hall in Edinburgh in June, but I think it's been postponed till later in the year. Whether that will actually go ahead or just end up being cancelled is anybody's guess at this stage.
Hopefully, I mean, a lot of kind of gigs and live podcast recordings and stuff like that are now getting rescheduled for later on in the year, kind of September or October time. And a wee bit of inside NHS information for you people out there. Apparently, the coronavirus pandemic is meant to be reaching its peak like now, like in a couple of days. So once that's over and done with, we should be on the kind of downward turn. Hopefully things will start returning to normal slowly but surely. I imagine stuff like gigs and other big social gatherings are probably the last thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anything that puts people in close proximity of each other will be last on the list, I'm sure.
Yeah. Hopefully, like you said, hopefully it gets rescheduled rather than just cancelled. Because I think that'd be a fantastic gig to go to.
Hopefully. I think a band like that deserves to be seen in a small venue. I think it'll be absolutely mental.
Aye, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of kind of high energy, high strangeness, probably, to be honest. If there's any spare tickets, I'll be there. If I can get time off work, I'll definitely be there.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye out for when it's been rescheduled, and hopefully it is rescheduled so we don't have to wait years for them to come back to Scotland. So, that was Common Sense, the new EP from Viagra Boys.
Yep.
Why can't you have a little common sense? Why does the chicken water flow right to your head? And if you're feeling down, you can lick the bag. I'm going to the island of the Sentinels. I never meant to make you blue. Way too many times. It's not finished. It's finished.